You guys have shelter-in-place orders, I think, through the 20th of May, and now you have this advisory group on how to reopen the state with some of our old friends, actually, like Indra Nooyi, formerly of Pepsi. When do you see yourself refreshing some of those guidelines?
Well, first of all, we kept over two-thirds of our economy open. We never closed down manufacturing. We're a big manufacturing state, as you know, jet engines, Sikorsky, helicopters, submarines, big construction, public health, media, finance. We kept all that going. So what we're looking at is some of the smaller retail. We kept that open, but mainly for drop shipments. I think we can see that opening in the near term. So most of retail would be able to open up in the next near term, I'd like to think. And that leaves us with just those places that are tough to social distance. For example, bars, maybe close indoor dining, things like that.
And what is the future for those types of businesses? Are you beginning to see outlines of how they, too, can sort of join the party?
Well, you know what we've done, Carl, is we've asked them, give us your best recommendations on how you think you could open in a safe way. And, you know, the restaurants say, I have big outdoor dining. Maybe you'd let me start with outdoor dining as long as the waiters wore a mask and even wore gloves. So we're getting some good ideas that'll help inform our decisions over the next couple of weeks.
Do you get the sense that states like yours are being influenced, even at the margin, by other states who do have a faster reopening schedule for totally different reasons with totally different demographics? But are you thinking about the fact that it might get your constituents to start saying, hey, why aren't we doing that as well?
There's some that feel that way, but I got to say, I think the overwhelming majority in Connecticut say, I want to open up, but I only want to do it safely. I don't know how you can have a massage and do it social distance. I don't know how you can have a tattoo and with social distance. I don't want to risk things. I don't want to risk the chance that we're going to go backwards like I see happening in some Asian countries. So I think we have a broad consensus. We're on the right track, but there is a track to open the state.
Governor Lamont, it's Sarah. Senate Leader Mitch McConnell recently said that fiscally strapped states should be allowed to go bankrupt. What kind of drop in tax collections are you expecting as a result of this pandemic? What's the financial status of Connecticut, and how would you respond to Mitch McConnell?
I'd say, Senator McConnell, physician, heal thyself. Look at your home state of Kentucky. Look at the situation they're in. And before you sit around pitting red states against blue states. You know, here in Connecticut, yeah, we've had about a $450 million hit in revenue just this fiscal year. Because unlike other recessions, Sarah, where it's mainly the income tax that gets hit, in this recession it's the income tax as well as the sales tax. But we're relatively well positioned. I've got a $2.5 billion rainy day fund. I just described to Carl the big pieces of our economy that we have kept going throughout this. So I'd like to think we'll be able to get through this, but we are going to need some help from the feds. They don't want states across the country slashing spending, slashing social services, and raising taxes. That's the wrong thing to do in a recession.
Yeah, Governor Lamont, it's David Faber. I think your budget director anticipated you could see $1.4 billion in lost revenue for your next fiscal year. This demand is not just going to come back overnight. Sales taxes and obviously, as you point out, income tax, the most important single component of your overall revenues. How are you looking at the future in terms of the rebound to get back to where you were a year ago?
Yeah, very cautiously is the answer to your question. I mean, I can open up restaurants. I can open up small retail. We can get that going. But what are the consumers going to say? They're going to be voting with their feet as well, aren't they? So it could be a while before you see our sales tax revenues get back to where they were. But that said, we're a state that's a little less dependent upon the service economy, a lot less dependent upon hospitality. So I think we do have some advantages in getting through this.
But I guess, Governor, if you do get the help that you need and other states need, should it come with reforms that you have to take? Speaking to the mismanagement that you know, a lot of people do criticize your state and other states for having, for instance, the $5.5 billion that goes to pensions and health care for retired state employees when only $4 billion actually helps the poor. That's just one example that the Washington Post points out.
Yeah, no, I saw that. What they should understand is everybody I hire is in a very different salary structure than those folks who retired 10 years ago. Big contributions to health care, a defined contribution as well as benefit hybrid plan. So our new state employees all pay for themselves. What happened in the past, we've got to deal with. But my instinct is now is not the time to inject politics into what we need to do. Sales tax and income tax have collapsed. That's for health care related reasons. The federal government gave us guidance to close down a lot of these sectors of the economy, especially the service sector, so they've got to be part of the solution.
Finally, Governor, your own alma mater, Harvard, yesterday said that they are going to have classes in the fall. We don't know if it's going to be virtual or physical. But you know, you started your own career in telecom. I just wonder if you think the advances we're seeing in the technology we're using at this very moment is going to change things for college towns and all the small businesses that rely on having a higher education institution in that town.
I think this last 2 months is going to change things forever in a positive way, like you point out, teleeducation, distance learning, not to mention telehealth, not to mention telecommuting. I think everybody's going to rethink their model. I think universities will be a part of that. There'll be a mix, I think, of how much in classroom, how much on campus versus what you can do remotely. A lot of this, I think, is good for the state of Connecticut, only in the sense that, you know, for the last 20 years, young people all had to be in a major metropolitan center or else they weren't where it's happening. And I think today you're finding out through telecommuting, you don't necessarily have to be in New York or Boston for your job. At least you don't have to be there 5 days a week. And maybe if you think that stay at home may be part of a protocol as pandemics like this happen in the future, having a small backyard and a single family home may have some advantages.
Yeah, although I could also think of some disadvantages, Governor, in not having the universities in the state open and receiving students physically on campus. University of Connecticut, Yale, so many other important institutions. I mean, what are your thoughts about colleges and universities being able to open in the fall?
I want them to open in the fall. It's a big part of our state. We have one of the great university systems in the country. We have the best and the brightest coming to Connecticut to get educated. And it'd be a shame that they didn't come. They didn't come because it wasn't safe. I got to balance that, or I think you'll find the university presidents are balancing that. Obviously, if you're more of a commuter campus, less risk. If you have big residence halls, a little more of a risk. But I'd like to think that through testing and perhaps antibiotics and maybe a vaccine, we'll be on the backside of this come this fall.